Hello, welcome to Plod with me. My name is Colin and you're watching a channel where I take you around bits of London and tell you a bit about their history. And today we are going to do the third part of Soho. Okay, so I thought I'd pick up where we left off outside Hazlitt's Hotel, and we would continue down Frith Street. So bear with me. There we go. Okay, so I don't know how long this one will last, but let's see how we do. Now then, now I just thought there was something I forgot to mention in the second part. So we're doing part 3. I thought I would just rectify that since we're nearby. That pub on the right hand corner there, and it's opposite the place called Wilde House. So the pub on the right hand side with the sign outside it is called the Crown and Two Chairmen. And the reason it's called that is because up until 1836 it was just called the Crown. But then whenever they were sort of, I suppose, rebuilding it, redeveloping it, whatever, they decided to add a bit of the local history to it, because the two chairmen, as it shows on the sign, two chairmen were the guys that used to carry the sedan, in this case for Queen Anne, early 1800s. And she used to come here across the street there, I would imagine, to what's now called Royalty House, to see an artist called James Thornhill, who was painting her portrait. You would have thought, being the Queen, he would have went to her, but by all accounts the two guys used to come here, drop her off there to go in and get her portrait done, and then they would come in and have some refreshments in the bar. And so the bar's name was changed from not just the Crown, but the Crown and Two Chairmen. Now, that's catching up with part 2. Let's finish off, let's get going with part 3. Now, I mentioned in part 2 about one of the noses of Soho. There's another one just down there on the right hand side, so I'm on Bateman Street. Now here, I just tilt up, there's a blue plaque that says Dr. John Snow, pioneer, anaesthetist and epidemiologist, lived in a house on this site. So the guy who found the transmission form for cholera, the guy that we mentioned in the first video and has the pub named after him, this is where he actually lived until he died here in 1858, just a few years after his amazing discovery. And as I say, he was a big guy in terms of anesthesiology. He used to help Queen Victoria with the birth of at least one or two of her children, as well as doing a lot of good works in general. Now, you see there's another doorway into one of these little clubs. Throughout the 60s and 70s there was lots of these private clubs, and I'm sure a lot of them are still here, but here's one of them. It's just a doorway, you wouldn't even know it was, barely even know it was there, unless you were looking for it really. But it'll be another one of these select clubs. Now on the left hand side here we have got the stage door to the Prince Edward Theatre. I think it was last year I was doing a tour with a bunch of people, and as I was standing telling them about this building, Mary Poppins was playing at the time, and as we were standing there was a big limousine parked here, and suddenly Petula Clark came out and jumped in the limousine because she had been playing the old pigeon lady in Mary Poppins. But anyway, the reason that we're looking at here is, if you can see the blue plaque above it, it says, in a house on this site in 1764 to 65, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart lived and played and composed. So this was him as part of his sort of tour of Europe. They stayed in London for a time, and basically building his name and his reputation. And you could pay to come here and basically challenge him with a piece of work, or he could tell you, a note from anything from a clock bell to a piece of glass. And he used to do a trick apparently that Chico Marx of the Marx Brothers used to do to raise nickels and dimes in some of the bars in New York, and they used to cover a piano with a sheet and still be able to play it, without seeing the keys. So, Mozart, who would have thought? But he was very young then, So if he was here in 64 and he was born in 56, so he's about 8 or 9. Obviously, as we all know, child prodigy. Over here, Ronnie Scott's famous jazz club. I think it's been based here since the early 60s. I know it started off somewhere else and then came here. In rock and roll history, it's got a bit of stuff behind it as well. And this was the first place that the Who played their rock opera Tommy. And it was also the last venue that Jimi Hendrix played before he died. I think he just came along to support some other band who were called War. And I think it was just a bit of a jamming thing, and he played along with them. And then obviously he tragically died at home. So that's Ronnie Scott's. And then on the left here we have one of the stalwarts of Soho. So this is Italia. This has been here since 1949. Italian cafe run by the same Italian family, I think, the whole time. They always have the big screen on at the back, frequently playing Italian football. It's usually open till the early hours. I think it's open about 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 or 3. So if you come out of a pub or theatre show, but in the early hours, if you come out of a nightclub and you fancy a coffee or a bite, this is somewhere that's always open. Apart from after the final of the Euros in the year 2000, when Italy got beat and they closed early, apparently. We're happy about that. There's a blue plaque above it which says, in 1926, in this house, John Logie Baird first demonstrated television. So basically, this was where it was first demonstrated that it was possible. There was other people working on it, and he was just the first one to make the breakthrough. But strangely enough, ironically, it wasn't his version of the TV screen that was eventually adopted by the BBC a few years later. I think it was a Russian gentleman, but he did in the same way that everybody wants more pixels in the camera. The other guy's screen had more sort of pixels and definition, and so that was the one they went with. But what's not mentioned is Billy Tainton. Of course, the world famous Billy Tainton, we all know him. Why not? I don't bloody know. So basically, when Baird had made his discovery, he was up on the top floor, he'd made this discovery, he'd managed to see something that was in the room. And then obviously there's the worry, is this like a ghost image? So he had to be certain that he wasn't picking up something from before, but he wanted to see if it could capture, move an image and that sort of thing. And he sprinted downstairs and got the young guy who was like an apprentice to the guy who owned the business downstairs, called William Tainton, and he had to pay him £50 to come up and sit in front of his camera. Apparently he was scared to death. So he would have been the very first person ever to appear on TV. Also would have been technically the first paid performer. So, and yet nobody's ever heard of him, including myself until I read about him. So we're going to go back down the Frith Street, cutting across Compton Street again. We're sort of going up and down. And there was a club here in Compton Street, I think it was just on the left there, at one point, called the Thursday Club, and it was sort of same sort of members tended to go most of the time. It was the Duke of York, the Queen's husband, people like David Niven, Peter Ustinov, British actor James Robertson Justice, and a few others. They used to basically meet, drink and crack jokes. So that's where that used to take place. So, we find ourselves in Romilly Street. Now, I find I should mention the origins of the name. So there's not much to tell you about Romilly Street, apart from that building on the left, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. So, Romilly Street is named after a guy called Samuel Romilly. I would imagine the reason, because he lived up in Russell Square, I'm guessing the reason that the street is named here is maybe because of the people he lived, or he helped who lived here. Maybe his practice was here, I don't know. But he was an MP and a lawyer, but a very big campaigner in reducing things like capital punishment for minor crimes. Also a big campaigner against the slave trade. And until him and the other people who had the same beliefs, but he was a leading voice in it, you could get hung for basically mugging somebody. Now there are some people that might say that's a good thing, maybe you ought to bring that back, but women, children, minor crimes would just basically lead to capital punishment, including if you were begging without a license from a magistrate. So he got that one repealed. He got the death penalty removed for everything apart from, I think it was treason and murder, and he was just a big campaigner in trying to make the justice system more humane. And as I say, he was also a big campaigner regarding the slave trade. Unfortunately, his death was very tragic. Basically, his wife died. He must have been absolutely devoted to her, because within a few days of her death, he was an absolute bitch. And then he slit his own throat and he died. So this street, named after him, I can only imagine it's because of either he had a practice here or the people he helped in the area wanted to sort of remember him. Now, if I spin this round, so this was a hotel called Kettners. Now, I know at one point it was a Pizza Express. I'm not sure what it is now. It says up on the wall, established in 1867. At one point, this was quite a discreet hotel, and it was here that Oliver Wilde used to come here. Oscar Wilde, Oliver. Honestly, God, I'm getting the names mixed up. Oscar Wilde used to come here to meet his lover, Alfred Douglas, and King Edward VII, as he would become, used to come here to meet Lily Langtry and have a discreet liaison. So Oliver Wilde was obviously someone completely different, who invented playing the spoons, no doubt. Right. Now, this is one of the pubs in Soho, best known, the Coach and Horses. The main reason it used to be known up until 2006 was because of his landlord, who was widely reputed to be the rudest landlord in London. It was very much, a pub for locals. He would basically police who would drink there. He would kick people out for being boring. Apparently one of his more choice things he said to someone was, "You're so ugly, you're disturbing the rest of my customers," and kicked them out. And there was a play about one of the locals that used to drink here. A guy used to write for one of the big papers, whose name I just can't think of at the minute. Geoffrey Bernard, but I can't remember the paper he wrote for. But he was, basically lived in here, as was shown in the play. There was a play called Geoffrey Bernard is Unwell, which was premiered with Peter O'Toole. I saw it sometime later with Tom Conti, and it was funny. It was a good laugh. And every now and again they bring it back, but it's all about his experiences and telling stories from this pub. So again, John Hurt, Tom Baker, no doubt O'Toole, lots of others would all drink here. And in the first Soho film that I did, I showed you The Offices of Private Eye, the satirical magazine, and it traditionally has held a lunch in here every couple of weeks, so ever since it was formed. So That's the Coach and Horses. Next to it is the oldest French patisserie in London since 1871, Maison Bertaux. Sorry about the French pronunciation with the Belfast accent, but what can you do? I have out in here a number of times because you just look at the buns and you go, I'll have everything. Now, I'm not so interested in the pastries. I'm sure they're very nice. And to be fair, there's not that many buns out today. There's usually a lot more. But look at those cheesecakes. And I can tell you they're lovely. So I usually go in, have a coffee, and a bit of cheesecake. Or a bun. The Prince Edward is currently doing Michael Jackson, as I mentioned before. Cafe Bohème does a nice coffee. I can vouch for that. La Porchetta Polo Bar does a very nice Italian food at a very reasonable price. Now, some of the people I've come with after a tour have been a bit dubious about the state of the toilets, but otherwise very good food. So this is Greek Street, so named because of the Greek refugees who moved here. They were some of the earliest refugees to the area.
You know where we were, like, I mean, yeah. That was
Now, this building, let me just tilt up here, hold on. I don't know if you can read that green sign. Hold on, the camera's around to the right. Yeah, see it doesn't like, okay, let's try again. Right, so the green sign above where it says Zebrano there, it says Peter Cook, comedian and only twin. That was the name of his autobiography. Tragically, I was an only twin. Co-founded and ran the Establishment Club, I think here, and it says 61 to 64, I think. So basically the Establishment Club was as it says, it was a club, and they would have comedians and do satirical stuff about the establishment, ironically, because this was called the Establishment Club. But they would have lots of comedians, him and Dudley Moore, obviously, because they were a comedy duo in the 60s, but lots of other people, and they would bring over people from America, like Lenny Bruce played here, and lots of other big names. So that was where the Establishment Club was based. It was very well known. The other event that took place here, actually on that first floor where the plaque is, there is an iconic photo. Well, let me swing around. There is an iconic photo of the 60s. Like I said, Carnaby Street was one of the iconic things, the Beatles and all that. One of the photos that absolutely represent the 60s and everybody would recognise if you're sort of from that era was a photo of Christine Keeler sitting in a chair. She's sort of sitting face on, but it looks like she's naked, but you can't actually see anything, but she's sitting in a chair. Actually quite a beautiful photo, very well done. And it was actually taken in that room. So what had happened was she had been an escort girl involved in a big scandal with a minister called John Profumo, led to him having to resign. And they were going to make a movie, and she had been paid to do some publicity shots for the movie. And when they got here, the producer of the movie said, well, if we're going to sell the movie, you got to be naked for the photos, which she wasn't up for. She didn't think she had agreed to that. And they said, well, actually it's in the contract, so you've got to do it or we'll sue you. So the photographer had the brainchild. He said, okay, let's do it like this. So he got one of those, it was like an old school chair, and he got her to sit in the chair, turned it the wrong way round with her facing so that you couldn't see anything. So contractually she was naked, but she managed to cover her modesty. But that's where that took place. I can't show the photo on the video because I wouldn't know who to give the attribution to, and you could get sued and all that. But just Google Christine Keeler photo, and it'll be the one that comes up. So that's where that took place. So opposite, in the 1760s, if you remember earlier, I said Casanova had lived here, and where the Japanese barbecue is now, there was a building, and that's where he lived. And there's a whole story about him, but it's a bit long. Maybe one for the tour if you chose to come over, or maybe I'll tell another time. L'Escargot is apparently one of the more exclusive restaurants in Soho, if not London, but certainly Soho. And obviously where I dine on a regular basis. And again, sometimes the history of the place is in the signs that haven't been changed. Like, it says there, St James and Soho Club, established 1864. Well, obviously now it's an art gallery, but they haven't changed the sign, which is nice. And there it tells you that the famous potter, Wedgwood, says Josiah Wedgwood, master potter, here had his London showrooms from 1774 to 1795. So, again, in Soho, when it was in its better days, I suppose when the wealthier patrons still happened to be here, this is, he still had his showrooms here. I'm just going to show you a cafe in case you're ever in the area. This is somewhere I recommend for, well, the coffee's nice, let's face it, 9 times out of 10 coffee is coffee, but Tentico does a chocolate and hazelnut cookie that is the size of a pizza plate for the same price as you get much smaller ones elsewhere, and they're lovely. So take my recommendation, chocolate and hazelnut cookie, well recommended. Huh? I don't smoke, sorry. This is Manette Street. So this is relating to A Tale of Two Cities, because apparently the house behind it, one of the characters from A Tale of Two Cities, was supposedly based on the house here. And I have not read the book. I don't know the backstory behind it, but apparently if you have, you'll know the name Manette. And this place with the flag outside, unfortunately, as an establishment, is closed these days. So this is the St Barnabas House of Charity, as it says. Now I'll just explain the history behind the building. Right, so if I just come round and tilt up for you, you can see it a bit better. So there we go. You can see it says House of Charity there. So I'll just explain. So basically, this building, 1700s, can't remember exactly, But it's more important in my mind. In the 1840s and 50s, this was like building for the Commissioner of Works, Engineering Works in London. And it was here that the planning for the London sewage system by Joseph Bazalgette was done. Now you might be saying, so what? This was one of the greatest pieces of engineering ever done. So if you imagine the Channel Tunnel is 31 miles long. The London sewage system he built, and which lasted for well over 100 years. It's only recently they've had to sort of add to it to expand it because of the growth of the city and wet wipes. But basically, he built in, there was over 1,000 miles of drains that then fed into 85 miles of huge sewers, over 300 million bricks. And it was like basically, engineering genius, and it was all planned and done in this building. Then in 1863, they'd sort of finished using it for that purpose, and suppose they moved elsewhere because the work hadn't finished. And it was given over to charity, the House of Charity, and it was basically because of the nature of the area, the sex trade, everything else. It was given over to a charity for what's known as like fallen women, so homelessness, prostitution, that sort of thing. And so it remained until just a couple of years ago. Basically the victim of COVID and age, because I think like a lot of things during COVID, it wasn't able to raise the money that would need to keep going. Then they had an issue with the roof. I think a ceiling fell in or something, and it basically wasn't feasible, financially, for them to repair it. And despite the fact they had the backing of sort of TV and movie stars and all the rest of it, they just didn't have the funding to do it. And so they basically said, right, the building is in trust to the charity, so it just can't be sold off to any old developer. It has to, sort of charitable sort of thing. But they've been looking for somebody else to take it over since. I think so far, no luck. So, yeah. But there is a nice little touch over here. You still can donate to the charity, obviously. Obviously, the charity's still going, even if the building's purpose isn't going. But there's a nice little thing over here. I'll just show you. You could donate to the charity here. So basically, you see the slot here. You put money in. It will go down the pipe and into the building. So if you wanted to donate out of hours, or if you were a local and you didn't have much to donate, you just wanted to put a few pence in, then you could do it. Now, we are back up in Soho Square where we started the first tour, and I'll just show you the church, and that will be that. Now, I don't know if you remember when we were looking at the mural. If you watched the second video, we looked at the Soho mural, Soho, and I mentioned a lady called Teresa Cornelius, who was Casanova's lover, the famous stud muffin, and I said that she used to run a place that was sort of like a 18th century version of a nightclub, but with lots of sex involved, and it was basically based here. There was a big house here. And then eventually it all closed up. She went bust, died in prison as a debtor. But on the spot where it was, in 1891, was built St Patrick's Catholic Church, which is the oldest church in London devoted to the patron saint and environment, St Patrick. And I've got some photos that I've taken from times before. Obviously can't go in today, it's a Sunday, it's a working day, or there's a service going on. But it's a lovely church inside. I'll add some photos in so you can see. So, hold on. It's got quite a steeple. I'm assuming that's what you would call it. tower. Sort of long and thin, if you see what I mean. Not so wide at the front. When you get in, it widens out a bit. All right, that is it. I'm just going to take you up here because I'll show you the point that we start the Soho tour from. If you're that way inclined, you come to London, you'd like me to show you around it. So on the right here we have the Soho Place Theatre, and this is where I give instructions to meet for doing the Soho tour if you want to come along. But for today's video tour, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was good for you. Any questions as ever, let me know. Anything else you want to know about, again, drop me a line. If you want to subscribe, there should be something appearing on next to my head any moment now. And what can I say? I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Okay, thanks very much for joining us. See ya. Bye.